Social media pub crawl with none other than Brooke B. Sellas. For some reason, I've gotten the habit, Brooke, of including the B in your name. Is that normal for you, or is that just something that's stuck with me for some reason?
No, you know what? When I first changed my name, so when I first got married, I was like very, I used the B with intent, but it's fallen off lately because now it's just like, Brooke Sellas. It's so much easier than Brooke B. Sellas. It takes so much effort.
Yeah, but I don't know. It just has a good ring to it. It rolls off the tongue. Brooke B. Sellas. Like, I can't say your name without it, and I find I can't post it in social media without including your name and saying, like, I have to include the B in there. But you're saying that you're B-less.
I've dropped the B. I know.
You're losing the B. You're losing your – I hope you're not losing your buzz, though.
No, definitely not losing my buzz.
All right, well, everybody, guess what? We are live on Facebook. Good morning. Happy Friday. It's April 5th, 2019. It's a very special, very exciting day, actually, on several accounts. Number one, I launched my new bookkeeping course on Monday, and we've already got a bunch of people signing up for it. I'm very, very excited about that, which brings us to the other point about Kajabi, the new platform, which I'm going to move all my courses over to. And when I've done that, and you know me, I usually have a cleaning process where I'll just kind of leave behind the stuff I don't care to have anymore and just bring in the stuff that I think is really good, right? Once that's all done, we're going to completely redo the Nerd Enterprises site because I know people are having problems with it. It's slow. They can't log in. They can't access the webinars. And we're going to fix all that because I'm going to leave that all that stuff is going to be left to Kajabi to manage and host and provide the bandwidth. So that's all very exciting stuff. The other exciting thing is today is the actual day of my anniversary of being 20 years sober. No drugs, no alcohol, nothing that affects me from the neck up for 20 years. And to top it off, and to make this day that much more special, we have the most amazing guest ever with us. I hope you all caught the podcast because it was amazing. It was hilarious. It was one of the, I've had a great time with all of our podcasts, but this one really kind of stands out. We had a blast talking with none other than, here it is, Brooke B. Sellas. Thank you, Brooke, for joining us today.
The B, you know what? I like the B. You're selling me on the B. I gotta bring the B back.
I love the B.
All right, it's coming back. I'll bring it back.
I think we need the B. I don't think we should drop the B at all.
No,
I thought it's just a silent B.
No, it's a silent E on Brooke, which everyone forgets when they send me emails. It's always like Brooke, B-R-O-O-K, and I'm like, where's the E? Yeah.
As long as it's not a spelling bee.
Ooh.
Ooh. Like, I feel like...
I'll be here all day. All right, I'm just checking in on the Facebook group to make sure that the post is successfully live there, and the Facebook page to make sure we're all good. So, Brooke, hopefully everybody did hear the podcast, but just in case somebody who's listening didn't, for shame, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, who you do it for.
I am Brooke B. Sellas, owner of B Squared Media, and that's why the B is important because I used to be Brooke Ballard, which is where B Squared came from. And we're about to turn 7 in May, and we're a done-for-you social media management and social media and search advertising company. So we're boutique, we're small, and we service small, medium, and enterprise-sized clients who really want help with like the worker bee stuff. So we don't go out and build like these big, sexy strategies and then pass them off. We're actually the team who comes in for our clients and does the monitoring of their social media pages after hours or on the weekends or on holidays. Or we take over, special where they need special skills like in advertising and help them there.
Excellent. And so let's just dive right in because we have a group of people here, all of whom are accountants or bookkeepers or something somewhere in between, right? Dennis here is like a certified fraud examiner.
Ooh.
So he's like the serious joint.
He's like for serious.
Yeah. So what's your advice for these people? Because they all, let me give this some context and some background. And I'm just going to say this honestly. I hope nobody's offended by anything I'm saying. It's not meant to be offensive at all. But I just wanted to preface it with that just in case what I say is offensive to somebody. So in my experience, most accountants and bookkeepers that I talk to, they say they want to produce content, But the reality is they don't have the time for it. They don't have the bandwidth for it. They're too shy to do it. There's any number of reasons why they can't or don't or won't do it. Go. What's your advice? Hire
Well,
B squared.
Well, not only my question may be like, why? Why do you want to put content out there? I think I know the answer, but I'll let you guys speak to that. And what is not only what is your why, but what are your customers' why? Like, why would they want to engage with that content that you want to put out on social? And if the answer is because, I know they're looking for me there, or I know people use social, or I want to meet the consumer where they are, then absolutely. Obviously.
What if it's because everybody else is doing it?
Well, I don't like that answer. No, you got to be a little more strategic than that. We don't want to be a lemming, right? We don't want to do what everyone else is doing, because what they're doing may not work for you. It may not even be working for them.
But kidding aside, this is what everybody's hearing, though. Everybody's telling you have to produce content, right?
Yes. Yeah, and I think it solves so many problems. So it's not just like a marketing problem. It's a sales problem. It's a search problem. When people are Googling locally in their area, how do they find you? You can't, the old myth was if you build it, they will come, and that's not how it works. So I think content is hugely important, especially content distribution, because going beyond just creating the content, if you create that content and it doesn't go anywhere, if it doesn't move, if it doesn't get shared or consumed, it's not doing you any favors. So it kind of goes beyond like creating the content.
Right. And then I think, and again, I'm sort of speaking on behalf of people here, but that's because I've talked to a lot of them and gotten this feedback. But everybody who's here, feel free to chime in and, take advantage of the opportunity to learn from an expert here and find out what you could do, why you should do it, what you should or shouldn't do, and how. Because I think a lot of people also in our community, one of the reasons people are hanging out with me is because they've seen me be successful with it. And so a lot of people have reached out to me and said, I want to be able to do what you've done. And I always say to people, well, if you want what I've got, then you got to be willing to do what I've done. And that means produce a lot of content. And things have changed. When I started doing it, everybody and their mother wasn't doing it. It was new and fresh and different. And like you said, Brooke, you don't want to just do what everybody else is doing. If anything, we have to work even harder now than ever to do something that makes us stand out, right? That makes us different, right? How do I do that? How do I, and I even, I was showing everybody in our 97 and up group yesterday that, I have a whole content plan. Brooke, you've seen it. It's an Airtable where everything I've ever published is listed.
It's so cool. Yes. Did you show people that actual table?
In the 97 and up group, I did. Yeah.
Oh, it's so sexy.
Thank you. Excuse me. Wow, you're embarrassing me. I'm gonna start blushing. But she said the table was sexy, not that I was sexy.
So the data at the table, it's very sexy. I mean, that's how you do it, though. Like that.
Yeah. And there's a column in there where I rewrite the actual headline that's going to go out when it gets shared on social, right? And a lot of times I'm lazy and I just push the original title as the headline. And that's not the right way, because then people are seeing the same exact stuff in my feed over and over and over again. And let's face it, it's freaking boring. See my face? It's boring. Don't do it. So the other day I rewrote some of it and shared it. And I shared one of my posts actually advertising my new bookkeeping course. Did I mention I have a new bookkeeping course that launched this week, by the way? I'm sorry. I'm just going to keep saying it. And so I put something out there, which was just a little bit of a play on what Intuit's been doing advertising-wise lately. And the course is called Bulletproof Bookkeeping, right? So the headline I wrote to send it out there, instead of just putting the title out there with a link, I wrote, I wonder if Danny DeVito knows how to produce bulletproof books. Maybe if he took my course, and then I put the link in there. And I actually mentioned at Danny DeVito, his actual Twitter handle. So things like that I think are important to do, like take the time. It's like anything else, I think. The more effort I put into it, the better the results I'm going to get. Instead of it's very easy to just take everything I've ever published and grab the title and shoot it out there with a link and a nice photo. But that's not going to be nearly as effective as if I post less often, but post potent content by actually writing clever headlines.
Yeah. I have a tip for you guys, actually. We do what we call a 30 by 30. So when we get a new piece of content, a 30 by 30 is just the way that's our internal jargon we come up with 30 different ways to talk about this piece of content. One may be just the title. One may be a pithy stat that's listed in the article. One may be a quote from the article. One may be tagging, other influencers who are mentioned in the article. But we come up with 30 ways to talk about this
that's really cool.
piece of content, and then we share those 30 different ways to lead into this piece of content very heavily over 30 days. But you're not seeing like bulletproof bookkeeping, 30 times, 30 ways, over 30 days, you're seeing a lot of different ways to lead into the same piece of content. And we share it very heavily that first 30 days because we know through research then that's when it gains the most traction.
That is a really, really great and powerful idea. And also, the big question that I have, it seems like with a lot of services that are talking about assisting you with social media, SEO, so forth, they're always, especially on social media, they're talking about helping to manage your profile. But what they don't talk about is the actual content creation that goes on behind the scene. Because a post doesn't do any good if it's not like you have to create something to link to or so forth, right?
Right.
Does your service also help companies write that content, and is it always going to be guaranteed to be fresh?
Yeah, so for our organic services, which is where, like, say you hand us your Facebook page and we're managing that for you, we do all of the content creation. So we call it done for you because it truly is done for you, so that the business owner or the marketing director, whomever it is, can go focus on other things, not their Facebook page or Twitter account or Instagram page or whatever it may be. So we create all of the content for that page, and we do still look at it like a partnership. So for instance, if somebody's having us manage their Instagram page and all of the content there, we have to work with them very closely because we know that video is doing very well on Instagram. So we've got to push them to try to get video done. But we also on the back end create video through Instagram using like pictures and text overlay or polls or things like that. So it's always a partnership. But yeah, the content with organic management is part of what we manage because that's the biggest thing, right? The content is what gets people to your page. It gets people talking with you and your brand, and what gets people hopefully to share your information out, which brings, more people into the fold. So absolutely 100% content is one of the things that we manage with the Done For You organic services.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. I want to go back to it. I love the idea of taking the time around a single post to write like 30 variations on it. The only problem is when you have like 600 posts like I do, that's 600 times 30 that I have a lot of writing to do.
Don't make me math. Don't make me math.
I got to go, guys. Sorry.
What?
It's like 18,000 pieces you have to write. I think
it's a lot, but we're obviously, if you're doing it fresh, so what happens is when I do something like this, or when I did your podcast, which I'm sure you've seen now because B Squared, the company, shares it out, we come up with those different ways to talk about the podcast and then lead into the podcast. So one may be like talking to you, one may be like, did you know Brooke was a devil child, whatever it may be. All of those different lead-ins, but they all lead to the same place, which is
people are laughing, but that is the first thing Brooke told us in the interview was that she was a devil child.
I was.
No, and it's funny because I've taken a page out of Intuit's book that way because Intuit shares our podcast a lot. They're our number one, actually our only sponsor. And I noticed they do that. And I noticed that you do that. So I've started doing a bit of that, is rather than just sharing the title, like you said, sharing some excerpt from what people are going to find within. And like a good example of the other one that that we published after yours, Brooke, was the interview I did with Chris Brogan. And in our interview, at one point, I was like framing the question for him, and I was kind of rambling. So at one point I said, all right, let me just shut up and let you go, right? And then he picked up on that and started talking about that song by the Ting Tings that was popular a few years back. And that segued into a whole story that he told us about that time, which was a great story. Anyway, so one of the shares I did on that podcast was, find out why this song was mentioned and discussed in our podcast. And I linked to the YouTube video of the song, and then, of course, I linked to the podcast. So.
Yeah, an element of mystery. That's another one of those 30 points that we try to use, because you have to think about why people use social media in the first place. Like, we're using it as marketers and businesses, and we're trying to get marketing and sales KPIs completed, but the consumer, right? If you put on your consumer hat, you go to Facebook or you go to Twitter, Instagram, majority of the time, it's a form of escapism. You're trying to leave your job or leave your home and just escape for a moment. And when we think about what we want to do when we escape, there's a lot of different reasons, but humor is a big one. Entertainment is obviously a big one. Finding new information or research is a big one. Connecting, feeling like you belong. So if you can take all of those reasons why people are using social media and kind of like figure out some of those 30 lead-ins, you can really do yourself a favor. And, humor won't work for everyone. Mystery won't work for everyone. That's why we really try to go after 30, trying to encompass everyone.
Great. And then while all these people are trying to escape on the internet, you have this group of accountants who are trying to bring them back to reality and make them think about their bookkeeping.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine how busy y'all are right now because tax day.
So, but this brings up a good idea, which is, like everybody sitting here watching, if you're wondering like, okay, how do I actually put all this great advice into practical application? Is your first tip, get out your pen and paper or your OneNote or your Evernote or your Google Keep or wherever you put your notes and write this down. Okay.
Wait, does your pen have a tassel? What's going on?
This is actually a stylus for my mobile.
Okay.
And it does. And when I was a kid, I was a lifeguard and I used to love to twirl my whistle. This is my current version of that. It's a much shorter lanyard than the one I had when I was a 17-year-old lifeguard.
Yeah. You were I know you. I knew you. I knew you back then.
You did. You totally knew me. Except that I think you're a little younger than me. So you may have been like negative in years. I don't know. Anyway. So here's the tip, right? Because what we're just talking about, to create, for example, an element of mystery, here's the tweet that you might put out there, and the Instagram and Facebook and wherever else post, right? The Pinterest pin. But here's the headline, and and once I give you the headline, now you can go write the content for it so that you can use the headline, and the headline might be something like, "Find out the top 5 things people screw up in their bookkeeping," right? Because that makes people wonder, like, wait a minute, am I doing one of those things? Am I screwing up my bookkeeping? That's where you create that, like, it kind of compels people to feel like they have to click through and find out just to make sure that they're not one of the people doing one of those things.
Yeah. I mean, you guys see this stuff all the time. Like, there's probably like, this is the number one way people save money, but nobody does it. Like, I'm going to click on that because I'm like, wait a minute, how am I missing saving money that is so easy, but I haven't been doing it because most people miss it or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one of the issues you'll find, especially in our community, is people are weary about doing stuff like that because they feel like it's trying to play on people's emotions to make them click through to something. So how do you respond to that?
I mean, I think that's just one of the 30 things, right? If we're continuing on with like the 30 by 30 theme, I think, that can be one of the things, but I wouldn't say it's playing on people's emotions as long as you deliver. If in that article you really deliver the value or the one thing like, hey, most people miss this little box, check this box and it's going to save you $100, whatever it is, as long as you actually deliver on what the title is saying. You can't say like, here's the one thing people save the most on but often forget, and then not actually
and then write a blog post about belly buttons.
Yeah, not going to work. Then you're going to experience some backlash and it's going to be ugly.
So Brooke, one of the other key points whenever you're trying to do marketing is obviously knowing who you're marketing to, right? And a big portion of that is understanding where those people are at and how they consume their messages, or where are they trying to find this information, right? We're being bombarded by all these different social media options. So how do we find out, or how do we figure out what's going to be best for our message? Because even all of us as accountants, it doesn't mean we should all be on one single area necessarily.
Right. Oh, 100%. So like, let's say you have, you do accounting for real estate agents. Well, first of all, the low hanging fruit, which this is truly one of those things that is so easy, but most people don't do it, is to ask. So like, as you're talking to your clients, ask them like, hey, are you or your business active on social? What platforms do you love? I think that's honest to goodness what a lot of people miss is just asking or sending out a survey and offering like, I'll pick a random person to win $100 Amazon gift card. Like, give like a carrot if you're going to make them do something. If it's not on the phone, just asking. But like, okay, so say you do accounting for real estate agents. Well, for the most part, a lot of real estate agents are really heavily into Instagram. So knowing this and researching this, which you could find through research, then that's the platform you want to be on, because that's where your customers are. If you're servicing real estate agents, you know, they're mostly on Facebook and sometimes or mostly on Instagram and sometimes on Facebook, then be active in those two platforms. But I would still say, like, pick one and be the best there. So if you know you're not great at video, maybe focus on Facebook. But if you're not scared of video, go to Instagram, join them in these videos that they're creating, comment on their posts, like, create that conversation, which is our whole tagline at B Squared Media, which is think conversation, not campaign. We get so mired in the campaign or in the KPIs. Like, I have to close this many people. I have to blah, 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 whatever it is. How about I have to have X many conversations a day that aren't like selling or marketing to people? Try that and see how that works for you. But I would say, you know, to answer your question, meet your particular niche where they are. If your clients are on all the platforms, I would still say don't try to be on all the platforms. Pick one or two, be great there. And then once you're doing really well there, so like Seth is doing really well on Facebook, then maybe he should think about, you know, branching out to Twitter or branching out to Instagram or branching out to YouTube, whatever it may be. But like, don't try to be everywhere, just like you don't want to try to be everything to everyone.
And one thing I actually want to sort of pick up on that you talked about, Brooke, is the focus on the conversation, right? Because it leaves us the question of, okay, how do I start a good conversation? What kinds of stuff? What's going to spark engagement? Because how many times do we drop something in a Facebook group or something and it's like crickets? Nobody seems to care, right? And I learned a valuable lesson about that this week because, you know, I mentioned I launched the bookkeeping course in Kajabi. Did I mention that already? The bookkeeping course, Bulletproof Books? Anyway, I digress. So I'm in the Kajabi users group, you know, Kajabi, again, being the platform where the course is now hosted. And I'd gone into that group when I started kind of developing the content and asked some questions to get some feedback from people, right? And launched it on Monday. Within the first 2 days, I had generated $1,500 of revenue for it. And Kajabi platform is brilliant. They send me an email saying, hey, congratulations, you've made your first $1,000. And we're going to send you a T-shirt. Just click this link and give us your size. And it's this Kajabi Hero T-shirt. And I thought, how cool, right? And I got all excited. So I went into the group, and I'm thinking, this might be pushing it, but I'll take my chances. The worst they do is remove my post, right? But here's what I did to kind of try and help ensure that it wasn't going to look like I was just sort of promoting myself, is I took a screenshot of the email and wrote the post starting off by saying I'm really excited and how cool that Kajabi is acknowledging me for this achievement, right? And then I went on to say not only that I did this in the first 2 days, but then I said, but I'd rather teach than brag. So here's an outline of how I did it. And I wrote an outline. So first I told a success story. Everybody seems to love a success story because it inspires and motivates them. But then I didn't just brag. I actually gave them an outline for how I did it, starting with the fact that I'd gone into that group to get feedback, and I explained how I listened to that feedback and how that translated into what I did. And then I gave them the outline and said, these are the things I did. And the one thing I did that they all picked up on, and remember, these are not accountants. This is a group of marketers who know marketing. I am not a marketer by trade. It's something I have just kind of figured out and tripped and fallen all over myself trying to figure it out because it's not really my core competency. But I love doing this stuff. So anyway, the one thing they all took out of my whole outline that I guess a lot of people hadn't thought to do was that when it was all done and published, I did a video tour. And I did it, which was a screencast video walking people through. Here's what you'll find in this first section that I've released in each lesson. And it was my way of kind of digitally putting the product in people's hands and saying, here, try it. And you know, that post was the post everyone in the group was commenting on all day. It's now got over 100 people who have reacted to it and a whole long thread of comments and people congratulating me and giving feedback and asking questions. How did you do this? Why did you do that? And so on and so forth. And so I was like, holy crap, that got a ton of engagement, much more than I generally get in my own Facebook group. But that I think, and Brooke, I'm sure you'll confirm or deny this, that the formula here was I told a success story and I taught people something. I didn't just brag, in simple terms.
Yeah, I mean, you're using all of the right ingredients. Storytelling is very important. You know, people don't want to, we could talk about the benefits of our program all day long or the benefits of your course all day long. It's boring. Like, we've heard it. We can go read that ourselves. Tell us something we don't know. So the fact that you put it into a story, I think, was great. But the bigger fact was that you showed them how. Because we have plenty of ideas. Like, marketing and marketers would have you believe that we're like completely out of ideas and it's so hard to be creative. That is not true. We have all the ideas in the world. What we don't have is implementation. That's where we suffer. That's where we fail. So the fact that if you would have just said, I had this brilliant idea and this is what I did, people would have been like, okay, fantastic. But because you did the walkthrough, you showed them how. You're now teaching them like the value of the idea. Like, here's the idea and here's the step-by-step of how I did it, which is why I think you probably got all of that conversation and engagement, because you went beyond the idea and you showed them how.
Yep. Even the president of Kajabi himself, he was actually the first one to comment and thank me for sharing and so on. So, and I think the difference, Brooke, just to summarize what you just said, is it's the difference between telling people the what versus telling them the how.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of marketers fail there. They tell people what to do. They don't really teach them how to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it all goes back to value. Again, like, what makes me care? Why do I care? If it's not valuable to me, I'm not going to care. I'm not going to share that. And that's also what people, that is what makes people go beyond the like to the share, which the share is the most important thing you can have someone do with your content, because they're not only saying that they like it, but they're saying, oh my God, my friends need to see this too. My close circle needs to see this as well. It's value. People aren't going to share that unless it's like valuable to them or really funny. I share a lot of really funny stuff.
Humor is definitely good. It's just hard to do that in accounting. It's hard to be funny about accounting. I mean, you can be.
I'm sure there's some accountant out there, maybe they're even listening right now or watching, and they're really funny.
John Garrett.
Use that to your example. I mean, try to use that to your advantage.
John Garrett is he's an accountant turned stand-up comic. And so he's really funny. He's got a podcast called the Green Apple Podcast, and it's really good. In that podcast, he focuses on the things that people do that kind of make them stand out, that make them different. That, so like he took me, and at the time I was doing a lot of hiking, and I had told him a story of how, I had some potential colleagues reach out and say, hey, I'd love to get together. And instead of saying, let's go to a restaurant and do the same thing everybody does, I said, they were local. I said, let's go to Griffith Park and go hiking on Saturday morning. And while we're hiking, we can share ideas and get a lot done. And that was my Green Apple kind of example, where it was, something that made me stand out, that I do that's different than what everybody else does. And that's kind of his shtick, as we call it back home.
Yeah. Well, I would just say, like, think about that. I think that's great homework for everybody listening or watching today is, think about where you're different and what sets you apart. Like, so if we lump you all in as accountants, it's not fun, right? It's not sexy. But think about yourself, like, what do you do that's different than all of the other accountants we'll just say in this room right now? Like, I market to realtors. Even if it sounds boring, like, start there, because I think you'll start to train yourself about how to look for those differentiation points, and then you can get better. Once you know, like, okay, I'm talking to realtors and I need to make everything about like their why and answer their pain points, then you can move into like, and how then can I make it funny? Or how can I add an element of mystery? Or how can I be, pithy, or whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm. And probably best not to tell people when they ask you what you do, not to just come out and say, oh, I'm an accountant, because it's like game over right there, right? If anything, say something like, I work with companies to make sure their numbers tell the right stories so they can use that information to become more profitable.
I save my clients millions of dollars a year. People are going to be like, oh, wait, what? What do you, how can we need to have coffee.
Right. Yeah. But if you say you save them millions, you have to be able to support that. Yeah.
You save hundreds. I don't care. Like hundreds of dollars. I still want to know how to save those hundreds of dollars. If they're a savvy business owner, they want to save every penny.
Yeah. I help my customers make their books bulletproof.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I'm a bean counter.
Yeah. There we go. Yep.
That sounds exciting.
Yeah. Like,
I'm a 10-key jockey. Right? I hope nobody's still using a 10-key. Please say no.
I do the maths. That's what I would say.
Some people like those 10 keys, though. They like to hear the sound of that paper rolling out as they type their numbers in.
I like that sound. It reminds me of my grandpa. So that's a soothing sound for me.
Linda Artisani is on Facebook, and she says that she thinks the 97 and up group is pretty funny.
Oh, there you go. So you're already using humor. Go you. Check another box off.
Yep. Boop. With my stylus.
With your tassel pin.
So, Brooke, we always hear about how powerful video is in social media nowadays. Everybody is wanting to do video.
Mm-hmm.
Are we reaching a saturation point, or is it like, what's? Can you get your glass ball out and tell us what's the next big thing?
I mean, I do think video is big, but I also think, here's what I think about video. If you're not good at video, don't do video, because that's not going to make you look good. If you're like, every other word is,
I was going to say, define what you mean by good at video. Are you talking about the production quality, or you mean more like your personality in front of the camera?
If you yourself cannot have like a personality in front of the video, then don't do video. Don't put that on blast. I think, for me, the trend and where I see marketing going is we're scaling back. I think small is the new big with social. So less platforms, more authentic engagement, more conversation, more one-on-one interactions, like making someone feel something, even if it's one person a month. Like, that's so much bigger than just blasting out content or videos or whatever it is on like 76 platforms. I think small is the new big. That's the trend I am trying to go with moving forward, and that I believe in right now.
You know what I think the next big thing is going to be? Listen carefully.
Is it a bookkeeping course?
No. Yeah, my bulletproof bookkeeping course. No. No, the next big thing, it's going to be hummus. Everything's going to be all about hummus.
I love hummus. Have you had Costco's hummus? Off topic, I know, squirrel moment, but like Costco's brand hummus, I think they put like some sort of addictive properties or something in. I could eat
crack. I'm addicted to Whole Foods garlic hummus.
Ooh, I haven't had that one.
It's really good.
I love hummus and I love garlic.
Mm-hmm.
You two realize there's some niche hummus company out there, and you're just killing them right now, right? Like, why don't they know about my hummus?
Maybe they can come in and advertise with us.
Yes, they should. If you're listening, hummus companies.
Yeah, we will promote your hummus brand, because it's going to be all about hummus in the future.
I will eat it on air. This is my when I binge eat now. Okay, I still binge eat on chocolate like once in a blue moon, but not often. When I binge eat now, it's carrots and hummus. That's what I binge.
Carrots and hummus is great. I'll tell you something. This is totally like we're way off on a rabbit hole here, but it's fine. It's fun. This is why I love talking to you, Brooke, because we can do these kinds of things and it's still fun. So I was at a restaurant a while back meeting a friend, and we ordered the hummus platter coming in. We were both diabetic, and he's like further along the diabetic trail than I am. He's actually got one of those things that automatically injects insulin.
A pump.
Yep. Yeah. And I'm just taking pills for it so far. Hopefully I get that turned around soon enough. But so we ordered the hummus platter, and we started to talk about carbs and cutting out the carbs because of the diabetes. And here comes the hummus platter with all the pita bread that we're going to dip in the hummus. And as it was coming over, I remarked to him, and I said something like, "Oh, I guess we're going to be having carbs after all." And the waiter, this is a great example of just service, somebody who was actually paying attention. The waiter says, "Hold on, I'll be right back." And he brings out a tray of big-sized sliced cucumber for us to dip in the hummus instead of the pita bread. That guy got a very good tip that night.
I can actually bring it back to the conversation with this.
Okay, I like this.
What we are using now a lot. Actually, a lot of our enterprise clients are coming in and using this, and it's called social listening. Mm-hmm. So, there's a difference between monitoring, so looking for those tags and mentions and then responding, and listening. And we are doing more and more listening, surprisingly, this far down the road with social, because of situations like that. We're trying to figure out for our clients, what are their customers talking about outside of even maybe our products and services that's important to them, that means something to them, and how can we join that conversation to make us more like a person than a brand? Because if you look at like Colin Kaepernick and the whole thing with Nike, they knew exactly what they were doing. Mm-hmm. They listened very heavily to where most of their audience sat on that side of the argument. That was not oh no, they put this out and now they're going to lose all this business and these people are burning. They were ready to lose those people and make a stand. And you saw right afterwards, their stock skyrocketed. So that was a very strategic play that they made based on social listening.
I would love to hear your insights sometime on all of the marketing techniques that are currently being engaged by a company called Intuit.
I do not have an answer for you today, but I can
off
share.
air.
Yep. I think I can safely and honestly share with you that Intuit invests a lot of money into what they're doing, and they're not stupid. They know what they're doing, and they do it well. And that's the reason why they're a Fortune 500 company with a ton of cash on their balance sheet. If you ever actually go Google their 10Ks and 10Qs, it's available for the public. Go look. We're accountants. We know how to read a balance sheet. You'll see, if you look at their financials, I did this years ago, you'll see they know what they're doing. They're not. There's a reason they are who they are. I'll leave it at that. The end.
I would bet they probably do a lot of listening. I mean, it's so funny because it seems so like stupid, right? It seems so basic to talk about listening.
No, I think it's not basic. It sounds obvious, but most people don't know how to do it.
No, and there's so many creative ways to use it. So like one of our clients, for instance, I'll give a couple of like out there examples. Financial institutions, not doing so hot when it comes to social, right? We've all had terrible experiences with our financial institution. There was a report done by Sprout Social that said like only 13% of financial institutions actually respond to people who are asking them questions online. So they're like one of the bad ones, right? We have a client who's a financial institution in Chicago, and they're actually using social listening they're outsourcing to us to have us handle like the easy level and the medium level questions that they're getting online. First of all, making sure that they're responding to all of them. But secondly, the big KPI for them, their key performance indicator, their goal with this social activity is to free up more time for those red level or those hard level questions so that they can spend more face-to-face through video or face-to-face in the branch or more phone time solving those problems. Not automated, not another like click here to blah, 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 blah. Like face-to-face, voice-to-voice, person-to-person communication. That is phenomenal. And they're using social listening to help achieve that. And then one other story I have real quick with social listening, we have another brand who's a luxury appliance brand, and they're using social listening to find out what like negative things are being said about their products. So we have listeners out there that are set up as like keyword stringers, like pain points around the products, but mostly like how do I, or how can I, or how to. And we're finding that like 75% of the complaints that we're receiving are because this particular coffee machine, people can't figure out how to change the filter, right? I'm making this up, but let's pretend like that's what we find through the listening. What we're then doing is turning around to the client, letting them know that this is like the mega beast of like pain out there with this particular product. And then they're creating a how-to video that goes on their website that shows how to change the filter in coffee maker A. And then what happens is we see the negative sentiment go down, the positive sentiment go up, but eventually we see it go away because what was happening is they were searching on Google first for how to do this. There wasn't a solution, so then they came to social to complain. So they're like taking the complaints out, period, through social listening.
That's brilliant.
It's mind-blowing, awesome stuff.
Now, are they responding directly to the people who are complaining and engaging with them, like you see a lot of brands do, and say, hey, we hear your complaints. We're going to do something about it. You know, please email us here or do whatever. And yeah.
We are. So we are outsourced for them on customer service on social. So we are doing that for their U.S. So they're a global brand, but we just do their U.S. Side. So yeah, we are doing that for them. But then we're going beyond that by using this tool to not only like figure out a standard operating procedure to get people through customer service in a timely fashion, but also to just cut it out, period. Like, hey, here's how we can like not have this negative sentiment anymore. Create a video.
The best way that anybody can improve at whatever it is that they do, whether we're talking about an individual or a company, is listen to the negative feedback. And even if that feedback is not well-intentioned, even if it's some troll just trying to rip you apart just for the sake of ripping you apart, doesn't matter. I've learned to look at that through the glasses of, How can I use this to improve, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I first started teaching Excel classes at Santa Monica College, they get to fill out an anonymous feedback form, which means they get the opportunity to safely rip me to shreds if they care to. And most of the feedback was good, but a couple people ripped me to shreds over some things. And I used that. The good feedback is wonderful. It feels good, but I don't care about it almost because it doesn't help me improve. The negative feedback is what helps me improve. I looked at that feedback, and the first thing I did as a result of that kind of feedback was take a course that was one course and divide it up into 3. Because after I looked past the rhetoric part of it, what I realized was the real complaint was it was too fast for some people, too slow for others. I need to break it up into basic, intermediate, and advanced. And that's what I did. Guess what? Now I make more money because now I have 3 courses to offer instead of 1, right? So thank you, trolls. I love trolls. They're my favorite people in the world because they help me get better, right? And to bring this listening concept into a context that may be more familiar to us as individuals, think how often, and we're all guilty of this, as far as I'm concerned, if you say that you've never done this or don't do this, you're full of it, you're just not conscious enough to be aware of it. How many times when we're engaged in a conversation with somebody, are we, instead of listening to what they're saying, thinking of the next thing we're going to say? And just waiting for a pause in their speech pattern so I can jump in and say that thing I need to say. But that's why I often use, I rip a phrase right out of my 12-step experience, 20 years sober. Did I mention that? And I say that I take the cotton out of my ears and I put it in my mouth and I listen. I shut up and take notes and listen to what I'm being told by my client or my prospect, because that gives me the information I need to do my job very well and certainly better than I was doing it yesterday.
Yeah, I think it's so smart. We all do it. I know we're all guilty. I feel the exact same way. We listen to talk. We don't listen to understand. And if you listen to understand, you can go so many amazing places.
Mm-hmm.
How would you prompt, if you're in a conversation, you're having a conversation, how do you prompt without, you want to do it very subtly, is how do you prompt that person to give you their negative experiences so you can take note of that if they're not saying, oh, I did not like working with that accountant because they did whatever they did. How do you prompt them without being obvious? Because you don't want to just be a complaint.
Wait, you're talking about prompting them to give negative feedback about their former account or about you?
Oh, no. Well, if you're listening to, just like this company is listening to customer complaints about something, so as accountants, there's some basic predetermined notions about accountants that people have negative about. Like, I know from talking to people when they say that their tax accountant doesn't take time with me to explain, because the tax accountant doesn't have the tax accountant is not engaged to do that. To do what we're doing is helping them understanding their books and making certain changes. So if I meet somebody out and they ask what I do, but how do you, you want to know if you're going to pursue them, what they're looking for?
I think if I can answer that real quick first, I'd ask them, what's the number one reason why they left their last accountant? And what's the number one thing they're looking for in their next one? I think that's a perfect filter to get them to disseminate why they left somebody and what they're looking for when they find somebody new. That should bring out the answers, I think.
Yeah. And if you're in a face-to-face conversation, or even if you see it online, I think you just ask for the story. People love to talk. We just got through saying people love to hear themselves talk. So be like, tell me more about that.
I love the phrase, tell me more. I've been using that a lot lately.
Yeah, that's what I always say. Tell me more, or help me understand.
Yep.
You know, what was it exactly that made you leave, or what was the final straw? Or how did you first see that came about? Because you're dissecting, the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story. How did you first realize that you were feeling that? They're telling you what that first, this is what happened first. And then in the middle of the story, you're like, well, tell me more. Help me understand, how did you really become to see this as a problem? And then why did you leave? Because you're going to get probably several different answers, because everyone makes mistakes. So whatever they did first is probably the most forgivable offense. But whatever happened in the middle and definitely at the end, those are the mistakes that you want to really pay attention to, because these are deal breakers, right? So I think just listening, just saying, tell me more about your story. Be genuinely interested in listening to what they have to say, and then create like we have what we call an FAQ document. Again, so basic, but so helpful. It's a frequently asked questions document. So when we're doing customer service for these clients, we can have kind of a reference guide of all of the questions that have been asked and how we've answered those questions in the past, and make iterations as we move forward. And I would say start an FAQ document around what you hear about the negative things, and start to document that and make iterations as you go along. But pretty soon you'll have a list of exactly what not to do, and then don't do that.
Right. And I think it's important to, some of the biggest, most influential people in business that I've talked to, including Gary Vaynerchuk himself, who I had the opportunity to interview a few years back, he said to me, his primary source of feedback or research is from his own existing customers. And I've heard this over and over again. Intuit. Speaking of Intuit, this is exactly what they do. They do research by surveying their own customers and testing. And they have, since they started the company, the Follow Me Home program, where they literally will send people to the homes of people who are using QuickBooks to look over their shoulders and see how they're interacting with their product. Their best form of research is with their existing customers. Our version of that, I think, can and should be, and this is hard because you're going to be worried about what you're going to get back, but it can be the most valuable information you can get, is to ask your own customers, what could I do better? Even if their criticism is not valid, it doesn't matter whether or not it's valid. It's what's on their mind that they're concerned about. So you have two things to do, either improve or work to show them why you're doing, because a lot of times they just don't understand what we do. Carolyn brought up the example of the tax accountant, right? And how the complaint often is, well, they're not spending time with me. And Carolyn, you also mentioned that it's because it's not what they're engaged to do. But where, as far as I'm concerned, that tax accountant has failed their client is that they didn't articulate that clearly. They didn't make it clear to the client, this is what we do. This is what we don't do. If you want us to do the thing that we don't do, here's what that costs, and we're happy to do it as an add-on, right? And that's how the tax accountant can grow their business and not leave the clients confused. At the end of the day, we have two jobs to do. One, make our clients feel safe. Two, make our clients feel safe.
Matthew, you have a question. So I'm not going to read it. I want you to ask it live so that everybody can hear it.
The question I was asking was actually came from some of the other topics that were brought up, which is, we're talking about these larger brands like Nike and Intuit, and the way that they're using social listening to go to that next step, to get the NPS score, if you will, right? Like that feedback loop. How do we take advantage of the same techniques as the big guys with our smaller market segment, otherwise, i.e. our feedback from our clients? How can we do the same thing and really gain from that?
I think, honestly, you're probably going to hate this answer, but I think you guys actually have it easier, because what we're seeing right now with marketing and consumerism and politics and just the U.S. society in general, right? Humans in general, there's a huge trust gap. Edelman put out, their trust gap survey not too long ago, and we're at a 16-point gap, which is like the highest gap in trust in like 10 years. So I think we've been speaking to all these points about how to be more trusting, but like you guys, what I feel is you guys should have it easier because you are a person. You're not trying to be a brand being human. You are a human. Use that to your advantage. And because you don't have these vast audiences that are maybe global, like we were using with that appliance brand, again, that's an advantage. Those big companies, when we have to pivot, it's like taking a left in the Titanic. Whereas you can pivot like this. That is your advantage. That should be part of your strategy. So, for me, if it were me, and I have a small, we have only about 40 clients, and we like that because we're able to stay small and it helps us be nimble and we can pivot quickly. I get on the phone. Seth knows this. When there's an issue or something that's not, working out for the client for whatever reason, whether it's our fault, their fault, just it is what it is kind of thing, I get on the phone and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Help me understand what we talked about earlier. Right? Help me understand what the problem is. Like, where are we like failing to meet your your goals, and then trying to understand what it is that client wants. Like, you know, do they want to dissolve the relationship? Is it just that we need to do better at something? Is it because things are happening in their life that maybe we can't control, so we need to like maybe put things on pause for a little while and come back and revisit things later? I think y'all have to get on the phone. Don't do it just when it's scheduled to talk about finances. Pick up the phone and have just like check-ins every now and then, and just be like, hey, Seth, wanted to call you, see how it's going, check in on how you feel things are going. You know, give me the down and dirty. And this is what I always say too, even though sometimes it's not true. You can't hurt my feelings. Give it to me straight. You cannot hurt my feelings. And that sometimes my feelings get hurt, but that's okay, because like Seth said, I can take that information and use it to become better, to save the account, to maybe not save that one, but do better on future accounts, whatever it is. It's always, always valuable feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yep. I want to check in on the live Facebook feed. First of all, big shout out to Aileen Gilpin. Hi, Aileen. Thank you for joining us. She says she's coming out of her shell, so I just wanted to bring her out further from that shell by outing her publicly in front of everyone. So everybody say hi to Aileen, and everybody embarrass her by giving her some love on Facebook.
Hi, Aileen.
And Mike Milan has just joined us, cashflowtool.com. Cashflow Mike. What else do we have going on here? Aileen actually says, great idea, Brooke, about the FAQ document. So do you have any information out there, like a blog that you've written that helps, that people can refer to? If you do, give me the links to everything you've talked about after, and I'll make sure we post them up in the show notes when I post this up tomorrow.
Not on the FAQ thing. It's seriously so basic. It's literally just like, people used to ask me what's my biggest advice as a business owner, and it's to document everything. So we literally document everything.
Okay. Well, and it's funny because a lot of people ask me in the accounting context, what do I use as a checklist? And I more and more I've been telling people, stop with the checklist. The balance sheet is your checklist. In fact, speaking of that check-in you referred to, in our case, I think the best way we can check in with a client is say, hey, first of all, I've been learning to, like, the word client is like a bad word. Call them customers. Client just seems kind of impersonal. Customer seems more engaged, right? So I'm learning to reach out more and more to my customers and say, hey, you know what? I think we should schedule an hour, and we're going to get on Zoom, and I'm going to bring up your balance sheet, and we're going to go through it together. I did this just last week with my biggest client. Long story short, he got real busy with his business, and we hadn't talked in a while, and then he kind of woke back up. I sort of had to wake him up because there were things I needed from him that he wasn't getting me. And normally we're empowered to get everything on our own, but these were things that I hadn't done that with yet. Anyway, so got on with him, started going through his balance sheet in Zoom, and after just actually it ended up being like a 2.5 hour call because it had been a while and we had a lot to go through. But at the end of that call, he had so much clarity. He acknowledged throughout the call how much better he now understands how meticulous we are about how we make sure that not a single dollar of sales is missed, not a single dollar of payments to go with those sales is missed. He's a big e-commerce company, and we showed him how we use clearing accounts to match up every dollar of sales with every dollar of payment, and we reconcile those clearing accounts to zero, so there's no way a dollar is missed ever. He didn't know we did that, and now he has a much better understanding, and now he sees so much more value in what he's paying us to do what we do, because he knows that we are going to extreme measures to ensure that not a single dollar is missed. Spending the hour doing that once a month with a client will raise the value of your stock in that customer's eyes 1,000%.
I
And
agree.
you know
I've
that
got another tip for you guys too on that note. Like, you know, like Seth said, if you can go through and schedule like unscheduled time with your clients, I think that's a great time to like upsell, to survey, to do all those things. But also, to Seth's point, if you can show the clients how much you actually do. So a lot of people like still think we play on Facebook all day, so there's not value in what we do. What we started to do is we use Basecamp as a project management tool, and we started inviting the clients into the Basecamp if they wanted to see what we were up to, and they can see all the SOPs or standard operating procedures we have going on a daily basis, how many times we optimize, all of the conversations we're having. And that actually helped our churn rate. It helped us retain some of these bigger clients, because they literally came back to us and they were like, I had no idea you guys were doing all of this behind the scenes, because a lot of it is behind the scenes work. It's not something that they can see tangibly, or that we tell them, oh, we went in and did this thing today with your content, because we're just not going to do that. But yeah, I think if there's some way to like give them that behind the scenes look. We're so trained to like hide everything that we do. Like, oh, it's proprietary. It's mine. It's my system. It's my whatever. But if you can be more transparent and authentic with what you're doing and show people the value, I think it's worth every penny.
Yep.
The beauty of showing people, or like, I obviously like to make videos. The beauty of making videos showing people how to do stuff is you can always count on the fact they still don't want to do it, right? So Seth, that's how I found you. I was looking at all your videos. I didn't want to have to do something the hard way.
I'm sorry.
So I learned from you how to do it the right way the first time.
No, this is why I have a job. Just because you have all the ingredients doesn't make you a chef.
Oh, I like that. I like
Yes.
that. I love that. That's a great testament to why people shouldn't try to do their own bookkeeping. Linda Artisani, by the way, going back to the hummus.
You know, I'm not going to try to change the oil in my car either. Like, could I? Well, probably not. That's not a good But you know, if I watched enough YouTube videos, sure, I could try. But
I would end up accidentally changing the antifreeze or something. I would probably like unscrew the wrong thing.
The car, let's be honest.
Wait, the car just came off the chassis. Going back to the hummus conversation, Linda Artisani is suggesting chocolate hummus. I got to be honest, I'm not sold on that one. That seems like I don't know.
Hummus then? Is it chickpeas with chocolate, or I'm gonna
It's a
need
Florida
more
thing, I'm sure.
I mean, I get that there's like a fad now with like the salty and sweet combination, but that might just be I don't know, Linda. You're going to have to sell me better on that one.
Yeah, we're going to need more information, Linda.
Yeah. Diane Muller says, we are the glue that stick entrepreneurs to their growth strategies. That's her way of explaining what we do as accountants. I like that. Mm-hmm. Larry DeForest wants to know how much carbs are in pita bread. Well, pita bread is basically white bread, so it's all carbs, right?
A lot. Probably like white you're not supposed to eat, right?
Yeah. Now, there are high-protein breads. I have gone out of my way to find them. In fact, I get these wonderful Thomas's English muffins that are like 8 grams of protein in that little muffin, and they're awesome. You have to look. Yeah, but you're looking for high protein content, low carb, high fiber, right? High fiber, high protein, low carb. That's the research that I did. And when I do apply it, I actually amazingly start like shedding weight instantly. Because I cut down on the carbs, and there's a whole conversation. There's a whole other Zoom. We need to bring like a dietitian in here and talk about it. And I'm only half kidding, because a lot of us as accountants are very sedentary, and so I think it's prevalent in our community because we sit all day, right? We don't get enough exercise, and that's another thing is we need to learn to get up and walk around every couple of hours. And Linda responded to Larry saying, bread equals carbs. Diane Muller says, you can make regular face-to-face your niche, big value to customers. I love that idea.
That's a great idea.
And if you're like me and you're remote and distant and a far distance, then Zoom is the next best thing to a face-to-face, right? Get them on a Zoom, let them see you. That builds trust. The fact that they can look into your eyes, right, is a huge way of building trust. Diane also says, ask a customer, I lost the context of what she was referring to, but something we were talking about, evidently, she said, I asked a customer that question yesterday. Loves the check-in. Mike Milan thanked us for the shout-out. And Michelle Crane says, yes, that would be great, I think, referring to us getting resources from you based on what we've discussed today. But you said the FAQ thing was really something you just kind of developed case by case?
Yeah, it's literally just like a document.
So you document specifically with reference to a client, every question that they ask you.
And then the answer that we work on either ourselves or that we get approved for the client, and then we can go through and make iterations. So we'll keep the iterations. So we won't like wipe out that first answer. We'll keep the iterations so that we can see, what changes are made. And these are soft data points, but they lead to big data points. They lead to like actual like revenue generation.
How are you capturing these questions? Through Basecamp, you said?
Basecamp. Yeah, we use the tool called Basecamp, and I've got, I actually have, if you go to, let me see if I can remember this URL right, and I'll send you the URL too. So
right. And just for everybody who doesn't know, Basecamp is a project management tool.
Yes.
So if you're already using a project management tool, you can probably come up with your own version of it there. But even Google Forms, right? Google Forms would be a great thing. Send a form to your client and say, anytime you have a question about something, ask it here. This way we can document it and give you an intelligent response. And when we've accumulated 2 or 3 questions, we can get on a Zoom and address them there.
And then, so if you go to b-squared.media/swipe file, SWIPEFILE swipe file. We actually have our 5 top social media processes laid out in checklists that we use inside of Basecamp. So we've given you 5 of our standard operating procedures around 5 social media tasks. It's totally free. You can go grab that. And if you do use Basecamp, literally you can make that into like a repeatable project or template inside of Basecamp.
Right. And it's probably worth mentioning at this point that, we also use Slack with our clients, which gives us constant communication and another great way to document questions and things that they're asking. Diana's saying Zoom is the new face-to-face. It cuts down on emails. With Slack, we practically eliminated emails. I don't get emails from customers. It's very rare.
Seth, this is Mary. I just wanted to throw something out there real quick. First of all, Brooke, this was awesome. And I wanted to just give a little bit of little insight on the FAQs too and how I've been using it. So I'm in a launch as well, and I've been getting tons of the same questions about what's included in the launch, what's included in the product. And so we have 3 different people calling like the lead and converting the leads. And it's a living FAQs that we all have. And what's been happening is that, first of all, we're super ready for the next call because like the last 10 calls had a lot of the same questions. But what we've been doing with the FAQs is we've been turning them into little tweets. So like if someone's like, is this included in the launch or is this going to be included in the series? Now on social, we're putting, guess what's included in the series? And so people are like, oh my God, I was going to ask that question. And now they literally are buying because their question was whether or not that was included in the series. So just that FAQs document, I mean, I love you brought it up, but it could be used like multi-purpose. It's a really great idea. I just wanted to mention that.
Oh, thank you so much. I love that. Yeah, another thing that we're doing with FAQs for ourselves and for clients, if you're using bots, chatbots on social, your chatbot can answer those FAQs because guess what that does? It eliminates the need for human capital and time to answer those questions over and over and over again, and the machine can do it for you so that, again, just like that bank example I gave, you can focus on bigger, more strategic KPIs.
Stupid question, and just because I haven't actually played with the whole chatbot thing at all yet myself, can I configure the chatbot to respond to a question with a link to a YouTube video?
Yes and no. Facebook has some pretty good native ways that you can customize your bot. We use a tool, so Sprout Social, which we use for really everything, also has the capability to build custom bots on Facebook and Twitter. So we use that to literally build out like a FAQ chain so that the conversation can go in any direction. And then at any time, if they want a human, they can say human, and it immediately puts them in front of us by an inbox, alert, so that they can grab a human almost seamlessly unless we're sleeping. But then we have like an out of office, like, hey, we're sleeping. We'll be back at 8 a.m. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So yes and no. Play with it because you can go pretty far, but you do have some limitations. So it just depends on how like custom you want to go.
So you can't
let that chatbot take those the really frequently asked questions that you were talking about off your plate.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I think it feels different than trying to read a page of FAQs and looking for your question. It's much better when somebody can actually type in their question, because that's the problem with FAQ pages. Is I know from being on the other end of it, I don't have the patience to sit there trying to find my question in their FAQ page. But if I can query a chat and say, hey, here's my question, and it can spit back the answer so I don't have to go searching through a page for it, so much better.
So much better. And make sure you're just transparent. Like, hey, this is, Seth's bot. Seth, don't try to make it seem like someone's talking to a human. Like, hey, this is Seth's bot. I'm here to answer all your frequently asked questions. If you need a human, just type in human at any time and we'll send a note to Seth to get back to you.
And the other thing you should all do if you're going to set up these chat bots is, as kind of a canned part of every response, just mention that I've just launched my Bulletproof Bookkeeping course. I'm just saying. And tell them all the answers are there.
Include a link to Seth's course with every answer.
Yep, exactly.
Affiliate link, of course.
Yep. I did create an affiliate program for people, and I am paying 10%. So there's that. So Marriott says Seth's bot or Seth's butt. That could go in a whole different direction, Marriott. I don't think we want to go there.
I don't know if people want to talk to Seth's butt, but if they do, then definitely.
I just thought that would be talking about funny. Seth is funny, so he could be like, hey, this is Seth's butt or his bot. Which is
yeah, you can talk to Seth's butt or Seth's bot. Type 1 for Seth's bot, type 2 for Seth's butt. By the way, I've just eaten an entire tub of hummus. That might influence your decision.
And there's like an asterisk that says, like, if you speak to Seth's butt, be aware that some of the answers may be poopy.
Yeah, totally. We can have fun with that one. Oh my
Wow.
God.
We're getting a lot of love on the Facebook live feed from that. A lot of people pressing the heart and the laughing. And with that, I think our time is just about up. It went by really fast, as it always does. If you haven't already caught our podcast with Brooke, that was a little different than today. You're going to hear Brooke's whole story about how she starts off as, what was the phrase you used? A devil child?
I was a devil child. Mm-hmm.
Very interesting experience in media and communications, ultimately leading to what she's doing today. So you gotta go listen to it. We had a blast. What we didn't even get into today is Brooke, like myself, is a big animal lover, right? That's why she couldn't become a vet, because she felt too bad for the animals.
Yeah. I thought you just could like pet them all day. I never realized you have to take care of them when they're sick and hurt. And I was like, oh, no, this isn't going to work.
Yeah. So you got to catch the podcast if you haven't already. And Brooke, how does everybody find you if they want to find you? You mentioned your website, bsquared.media, for the swipe files, right?
Yeah. Instagram, Twitter, it's at Brooke Sellas. But if you go to our website, you can pretty much find me. And if you want to email me, it's Brooke with that E. Don't let that silent E get you.
Right.
E at bsquared.media. And you can email me any like leftover questions you have.
And most importantly, I'm really glad that today we established that you're not going to drop the B in Brooke B. Sellas.
It's not happening. I got to pick it back up.
We got to keep the B. We need a whole beehive.
Well, our website has the Beehive theme going on, so
it does that. That's right. That's right. All right, everybody. Gina's Hangouts later today. Just go to SBAA on Facebook. Join her group. She'll point you in the right direction, so you can join her Hangout at 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern, and they'll chat for about a half an hour offline to figure out what they're going to talk about online. So join her. I guess she had to go. I don't see her in here anymore. She was in here as Gina Lisa. Mona Lisa. And that is about it. Next week, we're going to talk about how to, because as I have talked to a lot of you about your marketing strategies, and most of you are getting most of your clients through word of mouth, next week we're going to talk about developing your word of mouth strategy for getting new clients. Instead of just counting on it happening by accident, we're going to talk about being more intentional about it. Brooke, you're welcome to join us again next week and help in that conversation.
I know. That sounds like right up my alley.
Yep, definitely. All right, we'll see you all later, and the recording of this will get posted on the website tomorrow. Brooke, send me any links that I can use for the show notes, and I will provide those for everybody.
Will do.
All right, over and out.